Welcome to the AI Coach by Anil Nathu.
Glad to be here for this one. It's a big topic today.
Oh, it's massive. So I want you to just imagine clicking a single button, walking away from your computer and, returning 20 minutes later.
Right.
And when you get back, your quarterly taxes are reconciled, your notoriously messy downloads folder is perfectly categorized, and there's a 10-page, fully formatted market research report just like sitting right on your desktop.
It sounds like science fiction.
I mean, it really does.
Oh.
We aren't talking about sending instructions to a team of human assistants here. We are talking about your local machine doing this autonomously. Because in January 2026, Anthropic made that exact scenario a reality.
Yeah, and honestly, the tech landscape hasn't stopped shaking since.
Totally. So to really understand the magnitude of this shift, we're pulling from some incredibly detailed sources for today's deep dive. We're synthesizing Anthropic's official product announcements and their extensive Help Center documentation.
Which is pretty dense, by the way.
Oh, incredibly dense. But to ground all this high-level tech in actual everyday reality, we're relying heavily on a remarkably practical guide published by the AI Coach by Anil Nathu.
Yeah, that guide is essential for making sense of this.
It really is. So our mission today is to look under the hood. We need to figure out exactly what Claude Cowork is, how this agentic architecture actually functions, and the security implications of giving an AI the keys to your local files.
Right, because it fundamentally breaks the mental model we've spent the last 4 years building around artificial intelligence.
How so?
Well, we have all been conditioned to treat AI as a conversational partner, right? You type something, it types something back.
Like a really smart search engine or a chat buddy?
Exactly. But what Anthropic dropped with Claude Cowork completely severs that back and forth dependency.
The initial public reaction was actually kind of funny because so many people just completely misunderstood it.
Oh, completely. I mean, the headlines were calling it a smarter chatbot or, just an interface update for Claude 3.
Which is so wrong.
It's so wrong. Calling Claude Cowork a chatbot is like looking at a commercial jet and calling it a very fast bus. It just fundamentally misrepresents the engineering.
Right.
Cowork is an autonomous AI agent, and it's built directly into the Claude Desktop app.
Let's actually clarify the hardware requirements right out of the gate, just based on the documentation, because it's not for everyone yet.
Yes.
This is available for macOS and Windows by 64 architectures.
Yes.
But there is a notable exception, right, for users running Windows ARM64, those newer Snapdragon-powered machines.
Yeah, they're left out for now. And the distinction there is purely about the underlying instruction sets of those processors.
So there's not just a web wrapper anymore.
Exactly. Because Cowork isn't just sending text back and forth to a cloud server, it is actually executing code and manipulating files locally on your machine. So it requires deep integration with the operating system's native environment.
Makes sense.
And the by-64 architecture, which powers traditional Intel and AMD chips, I mean, that's been the standard for decades. So Anthropic built the virtualization environment for that first.
Porting it over takes time, I'm sure.
Right. Getting a secure, isolated virtual machine to run natively on ARM takes a lot of time.
Which kind of brings us to where this whole concept actually came from. Because Anthropic didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, let's build a consumer-facing autonomous agent.
No, not at all.
The origin story in our sources is fascinating. It all started with a tool called Claude Code back in late 2024.
Right, and Claude Code was never meant for the general public, like at all. It was a terminal-based tool strictly for software engineers.
Meaning just raw text on a black screen.
Exactly. You interacted with it through a command line interface. So a developer could point Claude Code at a massive repository of software and say, find the memory leak in this authentication module and rewrite the logic.
And it would just do it.
Yeah, the AI would autonomously navigate the files, write the code, run the tests, and actually commit the changes.
Wow. But for the average knowledge worker, staring at a command line interface is terrifying. I mean, there are no friendly buttons, no graphical menus. It's incredibly hostile to anyone who doesn't know the syntax.
Oh, it's awful if you aren't a coder.
But the sources highlight this massive anomaly that emerged. Anthropic started monitoring the telemetry and user behavior. And they noticed non-programmers were downloading this hardcore developer tool.
Yeah, people were willing to fight their way through a highly technical, deeply frustrating interface just to get access to the underlying autonomy.
Like who?
Well, you had lawyers using terminal commands to force Claude Code to cross-reference thousands of pages of PDF discovery documents.
That's incredible.
Right, and you had marketing directors hacking it to autonomously resize and rename entire directories of image assets.
So they were enduring a terrible user experience because the reward having a machine actually do the administrative heavy lifting was just that valuable.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is how observing that emergent behavior changed Anthropic's entire product trajectory.
They saw the writing on the wall.
They realized the core engine, the agentic logic capable of planning and executing tasks, was already sound. The barrier was simply the interface.
So they took that same engine, ripped it out of the command line, and wrapped it in the familiar, user-friendly Claude Desktop app.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it's a massive shift in how we actually interact with the machine. And this is a crucial lesson shared by the AI Coach by Anil Nathu guide.
It really is the core takeaway.
The guide points out that Cowork represents a massive psychological pivot. We are officially moving from AI helps me think to AI does the work while I focus on what only I can do.
We really need to abandon the conversational paradigm. When you use a standard chat interface, you are still the bottleneck.
Right.
Like if you ask an AI for a strategy to analyze competitor pricing, it gives you a brilliant step-by-step guide, but you still have to open Excel, you still have to visit the competitor websites, you have to copy and paste the numbers.
You still have to run the formulas.
Exactly. The AI gave you the recipe, but you were still cooking the meal.
It's like having a world-class head chef who refuses to touch a knife. You can ask him anything, but at the end of the day, you're the one chopping the onions.
That's a great analogy.
But Cowork is different. It's the sous chef.
Yeah.
You don't ask for a recipe. You point to the pantry, which is your local hard drive, and you say, prepare a competitive analysis based on these 3 folders and save the final report to my desktop.
And then you walk away.
And then you walk away. The AI chops the onions.
Right. The physical execution is what matters here. The agency shifts from you executing the AI's advice to the AI executing your desired outcome.
So to understand how it pulls that off without, destroying your computer, we have to look at the 3 distinct environments Anthropic built into the new desktop app.
Yes. Chat, Cowork, and Code.
And the AI Coach Guide breaks this triage down perfectly. You have to know which mode you're in. Chat is for thinking and brainstorming. Code is for developers building software. But Cowork is specifically for doing. It's the execution engine. So when I click over to that Cowork tab, the documentation outlines a very specific 4-step mechanical process.
Yeah, and the first step requires users to completely unlearn prompt engineering.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, for years we've been taught to give AI highly specific step-by-step instructions to prevent it from hallucinating, right?
Like act as a marketer, do step 1, then step 2.
Exactly. With Cowork, you don't describe the steps, you describe the outcome.
Okay, so you're pointing it at a destination, not giving it turn-by-turn directions.
Exactly.
Let's say I have a folder packed with 20 different highly technical PDF research papers. I don't tell the AI how to extract text or how to compare them. I simply type, read all the files in this research folder and generate a single-page executive summary that highlights only the contradictory findings between the authors.
Perfect example. And by focusing purely on the outcome, you trigger the second step of the process. Claude makes a plan. And this isn't just an internal invisible process. It uses chain of thought reasoning to break your massive request down into logical, sequential subtasks. And it prints that blueprint right on your screen.
So it shows its work before it does the work.
Exactly.
It'll literally output a list saying, Step 1, open research folder. Step 2, extract text from PDFs 1 through 20. Step 3, run comparative analysis. Step 4, format output into a markdown document. Step 5, save to desktop.
Yep. And this brings us to the execution phase, the third step. When you approve that plan, Claude spins up. But it doesn't just run wild on your operating system.
Thank goodness.
It operates inside a highly isolated virtual machine, or VM, that sits locally on your computer.
We really need to drill down into this VM concept because this is where the security and the performance actually happen. For the non-engineers listening, what does that sandbox actually look like?
Okay, think of a virtual machine as a completely sealed-off fake computer running inside your real computer. It has its own simulated file system, its own simulated memory, and its own simulated processor limits. When Cowork is executing a task, it is doing all the messy work running Python scripts, extracting data, testing formatting inside that sealed bubble.
So if it completely hallucinates and writes a script that crashes the system, it's only crashing the fake computer inside the bubble. My actual Mac or Windows operating system doesn't even feel it.
Precisely. The hypervisor, the software that manages this virtual machine, keeps it strictly contained.
That's a relief.
But what's truly remarkable about this execution phase is how it handles complex logic through parallel subagents.
Right, the documentation emphasizes it isn't just doing things one by one. If I ask it to synthesize 20 PDFs, it doesn't necessarily read PDF 1, finish it, and then move to PDF 2.
No, it's much smarter than that. If your local hardware has the compute power, the primary Cowork agent acts as a manager. It will literally spawn multiple temporary subagents.
Wow.
It assigns subagent A to read the first 5 documents, subagent B to read the next 5, and so on. They process the information simultaneously.
That is wild.
Then, those subagents report back to the primary agent, which merges their findings into the final cohesive document.
It's coordinating a digital workforce on the fly.
Exactly.
And then step 4 is simply delivery. You return to your computer, and the finished spreadsheet or summary or organized folder structure is sitting right where you asked for it.
It's just there. Done.
Okay, wait, hold on. I have to push back on this.
Sure.
If this AI is running wild on my local computer, making its own plans, what's stopping it from accidentally deleting my entire hard drive if it misunderstands my request? I mean, even if it's doing the processing inside a VM, it eventually has to interact with my real hard drive to save the file or organize the folder, right?
Yeah.
If it has that kind of write access, what happens if I tell it to clean up my desktop and its logical LLM brain decides the absolute most efficient way to clean a desktop is to permanently delete every single file I own?
This raises an important question, and it is the exact nightmare scenario enterprise IT departments fear.
I would panic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's why Anthropic designed the plan stage as a hard security gate. The transparency of Step 2 isn't just about good user experience. It is a fundamental permissions threshold.
So it physically cannot delete my files without asking.
It cannot. The system logic separates non-destructive actions from destructive actions.
Okay, define the difference.
Reading a file, extracting data, or creating a new document are non-destructive. Cowork can usually execute those fluidly without stopping. But moving files, modifying original data, and especially deleting files trigger an automatic halt.
Oh, that makes sense.
If the AI determines that the best way to clean your desktop involves putting 50 files into the trash bin, the execution pauses. The interface flashes a warning detailing exactly which files are targeted, and it requires a physical human click to proceed.
Okay, so I have total veto power. If I see a plan that says delete 2024 tax returns, I just hit cancel. And I assume I can tell it, hey, never delete financial documents, just build an archive folder and move them there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are the supervisor. The agent is entirely bound by the permissions you explicitly grant.
That's a huge relief.
And it gets better. It cannot traverse into directories you haven't pointed it toward. If you point it at your marketing folder, it has zero awareness that your finance folder even exists on the same drive.
Okay, understanding that strict boundary makes the whole concept far less terrifying.
Yeah, it's very contained.
It's like having an incredibly eager, hyper-competent intern, but their badge only lets them into one specific room, and they have to get your physical signature on a requisition form before they're allowed to touch the paper shredder.
That's the perfect way to look at it. And once you trust that security architecture, you can start leveraging what makes Cowork a genuine competitive advantage.
Right.
Because, frankly, having an AI summarize a PDF or sort of messy downloads folder is convenient, but it doesn't revolutionize a business.
No, it's a neat parlor trick. It saves you an hour on a Friday afternoon. But if every single one of your competitors also has Claude Cowork, you don't win just by having the tool. The tool is commoditized.
The differentiator is context.
Yes.
The AI Coach by Anil Nathu Guide explicitly calls out context as the secret weapon of this entire platform. The AI is only as powerful as the specific environmental knowledge you feed it.
And Anthropic facilitates this through two core mechanisms, right? Instructions and connectors.
Exactly.
Let's break down instructions first, because this fundamentally changes how we interact with the model. The documentation separates this into global instructions and folder instructions.
Right.
How does the global setting actually alter the AI's behavior?
Global instructions function as your permanent digital identity. It's a persistent settings panel where you establish the baseline reality for the AI. You tell it who you are, what your firm does, the tone you require, and the unbreakable rules of your workflow.
So instead of typing "act like a senior financial analyst" at the beginning of every single prompt,
Yep.
I just bake that into the software once.
Exactly, but you go much deeper than that. Let's say you are a supply chain consultant operating out of London. Your global instructions might read, I am a senior logistics consultant advising enterprise clients. Always use British English spelling. Default to GBP for financial metrics.
Oh, wow.
Right. And you could add, my tone is highly analytical, data-driven, and devoid of marketing fluff. Never use bullet points when a data table would be more efficient.
And once I lock that into the settings, the AI permanently adopts that persona for every task.
Every single task. Whether it's organizing a folder, writing an email draft, or building an Excel model, it passes the output through the filter of those global instructions before you ever see it. You never have to remind it to use British English again.
That is amazing. That sets the baseline perfectly.
Right.
But businesses have different clients, different projects, and different voices. That's where folder instructions come in, and to me, this is the most brilliant structural decision Anthropic made.
Oh, I agree. Folder instructions allow you to inject hyper-local context simply by virtue of where a file lives on your computer.
Okay, break that down for me.
Say you are an agency with multiple clients. You have a directory for client A and a directory for client B. Inside each of those folders, you drop a lightweight text file containing the rules for that specific client.
So in client A's folder, the instructions might say, this is a legacy banking client. The tone must be intensely conservative, legally rigorous, and highly formal.
Yep.
Meanwhile, in client B's folder, the instructions say, this is an aggressive Web3 startup. Keep communication punchy, use modern tech vernacular, and focus heavily on disruption.
And here's the magic. When you tell Cowork, draft a product update based on my recent notes, it looks at where you are asking it to do the work.
Right.
If you execute that command inside client A's folder, the AI automatically inherits the conservative banking persona. If you execute the exact same command in client B's folder, it automatically adopts the edgy startup persona.
Without me ever specifying which client I'm working for.
The environment dictates the context.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this circles right back to the insight from the AI Coach Guide. The more you refine these instructions, the more your AI's output compounds in value over time.
Absolutely.
It's the exact same dynamic as onboarding a human employee. If you hire a brilliant junior analyst and just say, hey, write a strategy memo, they're going to give you something incredibly generic because they don't know your firm's history or the client's sensitivities.
They lack context, and that's why people complain that AI writing sounds hollow or generic. They are treating the AI like a day one employee who has been locked in a closet.
But if you hand that human analyst your company's comprehensive style guide, your global instructions, and then you hand them the entire folder of previous client deliverables, your folder instructions, they instantly become a high-level producer.
Yes.
The AI is the same.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the strategic advantage doesn't belong to the person with the most expensive AI subscription. The advantage belongs to the organized professional who architects the most robust contextual environment.
It's a shift from being a prompt engineer to being a systems architect.
Exactly. And that architecture extends far beyond your local hard drive when we introduce connectors and plugins.
Because work doesn't just happen in local Word documents and PDFs anymore. The documentation shows that Cowork has native integrations capable of reaching into the cloud. We are talking Google Drive, Slack, Notion, Gmail, and DocuSign.
This completely eliminates the friction of file management. Historically, if you wanted an AI to analyze a Google Doc, you had to export it as a PDF, download it to your desktop, and upload it to the chatbot.
So annoying.
With the Google Drive connector, you authenticate once via API. Then, simply tell Cowork, cross-reference the financial projections in my local Q4 folder with the 2026 strategy document living in my Google Drive.
It bridges the local and cloud environments seamlessly. But the Slack connector is the one that really caught my attention.
Well, yeah.
Slack is incredibly chaotic. It's full of half-finished thoughts, custom emojis, side conversations, and unstructured decisions.
Yet, that's where the actual work happens in most modern companies. Cowork's ability to parse Slack means you can ask it to perform synthesis on human chaos.
Give me an example.
You can say, review the product launch channel for the last 72 hours. Identify all the final decisions made regarding the pricing tier, ignore the debates, and draft a formal update memo.
It has to understand the semantic difference between someone suggesting a price, someone disagreeing, and the project manager finally giving the green light. That requires incredibly deep contextual reasoning.
And it does this autonomously. But if we want to talk about taking action outside your local machine, the Chrome connector represents a massive leap in capability.
Right, because it's not just connecting to an API like Slack, it's navigating the actual live internet.
When you enable the Chrome connector, Cowork can essentially puppet your web browser.
Wow.
It uses an advanced form of document object model parsing, meaning it understands how websites are visually and structurally built. It can click buttons, type into text fields, and scrape data.
So I could theoretically tell it, go to these 5 competitor websites, find their enterprise pricing tiers, extract the specific features included in each tier, and build a comparative matrix in a local Excel file.
Yes. It will open Chrome, navigate to the URLs, locate the pricing tables, even if they are formatted completely differently on each site, pull the unstructured web data, and synthesize it into a structured local spreadsheet.
Mind-blowing. And for specialized industries, Anthropic has bundled these connector skills into plugins. The documentation lists specific plugins for legal, finance, and HR.
Plugins are essentially pre-trained skill sets. An in-house legal counsel doesn't need to manually string together the logic of how to review a contract.
Right.
They install the legal plugin, which comes pre-configured with the ability to ingest a non-disclosure agreement, scan it against a database of the company's acceptable risk parameters, highlight the non-compliant clauses, and automatically route the flagged document through DocuSign to the opposing counsel.
You are quite literally downloading a digital paralegal.
Which is an incredible proposition.
Really?
But it brings us to a necessary reality check. We have spent this deep dive talking about massive capabilities, but this technology is not magic. It is software.
Very true.
And right now, it is software with very strict limitations, specific hardware demands, and a pricing structure that can really catch users off guard.
We definitely need to ground this.
Right.
Let's look at the actual cost of running an autonomous workforce. Cowork is included in Claude's paid tiers, starting with the Pro plan at $20 a month.
Yeah.
But the documentation explicitly warns about compute usage. Running an agent is not the same as chatting with an AI.
It comes down to how large language models process information, which is measured in tokens. In a traditional chat interface, token consumption is linear and visible. You paste in a paragraph of text that costs tokens. The AI writes a paragraph back that costs tokens. The transaction is over.
It's a single exchange.
But an autonomous agent operates in a continuous loop. When you give Cowork a complex task, it consumes tokens to read your prompt. It consumes tokens to formulate a plan. It spins up a subagent, which consumes tokens to read a document. The subagent writes a draft, consuming tokens. The main agent evaluates that draft against your global instructions, consuming more tokens.
Though it is having a massive internal dialogue with itself that I never even see on the screen.
Exactly. The invisible chain of thought processing requires an enormous amount of compute power. If you are asking Cowork to organize a folder with 1,000 varied documents, it is making thousands of discrete AI calls to evaluate the metadata of every single file.
Wow.
You will burn through the standard $20 a month pro tier usage limits incredibly fast.
So what happens when I hit the wall halfway through organizing my tax documents?
Your session pauses until your limits reset or you upgrade. Anthropic offers a max plan designed specifically for heavy agentic users, which runs between $100 and $200 a month, depending on the exact token multiplier you need.
$100 or $200 a month sounds incredibly steep for an individual software license. But if you frame it against the cost of human labor, the math changes completely.
Absolutely.
If this tool replaces 15 hours a week of manual data entry, formatting, and file organization, which is entirely plausible for a data analyst or a researcher, a $200 monthly cost is an absurdly high return on investment.
It's the cost of employing a junior assistant, but at a fraction of a percent of the salary.
Right.
However, before anyone fires their assistants, we have to talk about the physical limitations of the software. Because Cowork is explicitly labeled as a research preview, and there is one workflow constraint that is frankly jarring.
This is the one that made me stop reading and reread the paragraph. The documentation clearly states you cannot close the desktop app while a task is running.
And if your computer goes to sleep, the session dies.
Wait, so if I give my AI coworker a massive data extraction task, I can't just shut my laptop and go grab a coffee. The intern just drops their tools and walks off the job.
You cannot. The moment the lid closes and the operating system suspends background processes, the Cowork session is terminated. All the mid-task progress is lost.
But why is it so fragile? If the intelligence lives in Anthropic's cloud, Why can't it just keep working in the background?
It all circles back to the security architecture of the local virtual machine.
Yeah.
The AI's brain might be in the cloud, but its hands are tethered entirely to your local physical machine.
Oh, I see.
It needs continuous, verified, split-second access to your local file system to read, write, and execute its plan. The moment your computer goes to sleep, the operating system revokes that access to save power. The cloud brain loses connection to the local hands, and the system fails safe by terminating the job.
It's a physical tether. It fundamentally changes how you have to schedule your day. You can't trigger a massive automation job as you're running out the door to catch a train.
No, you can't.
You have to schedule heavy agentic tasks for times when your machine will be sitting open, awake, and connected to the internet on your desk.
And to compound that localization, the sessions do not sync across devices. If you start a complex Cowork session on your iMac at the office, you cannot open your MacBook Pro at home and check the status. The virtual machine exists only on the specific hardware where it was initiated.
That feels very beta. It feels like a limitation of the current infrastructure that will eventually be solved. But for now, it demands serious workflow management.
It really does.
And speaking of enterprise-level management, there is a massive compliance blind spot we have to address for anyone listening who works in a regulated industry.
This is the paradox of local execution. Because Cowork operates directly on your local hard drive inside a VM, its actions bypass the standard cloud-based tracking systems.
That sounds problematic.
Very. The documentation is unambiguous. Cowork activity is not captured in Anthropic's enterprise audit logs. It is not trackable via compliance APIs, and it does not show up in administrative data exports.
That is a staggering admission. Let's make this practical. If a lawyer at a massive firm uses the standard Claude chat to summarize a sensitive client document, the IT department's compliance software logs that interaction. They know exactly what data was sent to the AI.
Right.
But if that same lawyer uses Cowork to scan an entire folder of highly sensitive confidential M&A documents locally on their machine, IT has zero visibility into what the AI just read.
It is entirely invisible to the enterprise compliance layer. This means if your business is governed by strict regulatory frameworks like HIPAA for healthcare data or FSI regulations for financial services, using Cowork on those specific workloads is currently a massive compliance violation. You cannot maintain an auditable chain of custody.
It's fascinating. The very thing that makes the tool so powerful and private, the fact that it runs locally and doesn't vacuum your entire hard drive into the cloud, is the exact reason it fails enterprise compliance standards.
It is the definition of bleeding-edge technology. The core capability has arrived before the institutional guardrails have been fully constructed.
So what do IT departments do right now?
Well, Anthropic knows this, which is why they give enterprise IT administrators a master switch to simply disable the Cowork tab globally across their organization until the logging features catch up.
So given these constraints, the high compute cost, the physical tethering to an awake machine, the compliance blind spots, how should professionals actually integrate this into their lives today? The AI Coach by Anel Nasu guide offers a very measured, pragmatic approach.
Yeah, the guide recommends starting low stakes to build trust. You don't hand the AI your mission-critical client deliverables on day one.
Right.
You start by pointing it at your chaotic downloads folder and letting it sort the mess. You use the Chrome connector to scrape public, non-sensitive data. You let it draft internal routine update emails based on Slack channels.
You treat it exactly like you would treat an intern on their first week. You give them tasks where the cost of failure is zero and the potential for time saving is high. You monitor their output, you refine your global instructions to correct their tone, and you build a customized folder instruction architecture.
You build the environment, and as the AI proves its competence within that environment, you slowly increase the complexity and the stakes of the work you delegate.
So what does this all mean when we step back and look at the big picture? We've covered the origins, the mechanics, the secret contextual weapons, and the hard realities of the software. If we synthesize everything we've learned from the technical docs and Anel Nathu's insights, we arrive at a very clear conclusion.
Claude Cowork represents the death of the pure conversational AI paradigm for knowledge workers. We have officially crossed the bridge from AI as an advisor that suggests actions to AI as an executor that takes action.
It's huge.
By operating safely within a local virtual machine, it has the power to manipulate files, run scripts, and coordinate subagents to achieve complex, multi-step outcomes.
But the technology alone isn't a silver bullet. Its true value is entirely dependent on human organization. If your digital life is a chaotic, unstructured mess, Cowork will struggle to make sense of it.
That
But if you take the time to architect your environment, if you build clear folder structures and write robust, specific instructions, the AI becomes a frictionless extension of your own capability.
It accelerates whatever baseline you give it. If you give it clarity, it accelerates your productivity. If you give it chaos, it just automates confusion.
Which leaves us with a final, slightly uncomfortable thought for you to mull over. For the last 2 decades, a massive portion of knowledge work has simply been the physical act of doing the work.
Yeah.
Typing the report, formatting the spreadsheet, moving the files, clicking the buttons.
Right.
If an autonomous agent is now entirely capable of executing those physical, multi-step tasks, your primary professional value is no longer tied to being the doer.
The mechanical execution of knowledge work is being rapidly commoditized.
Your new job is being an editor. Your new job is being an architect of workflows, defining the context, setting the guardrails, and managing a digital workforce to achieve specific outcomes. So the question you have to ask yourself when you log on tomorrow morning is this: how will you restructure your digital life when an AI is the one navigating it? Are your folders ready for an autonomous coworker? That's the real challenge right there. Thank you for joining us today. Visit the AI Coach website for more AI insights by Anil Nathu.